Welcome back. 1-800-859-0957. 1-800-859-0WJR. Look, this election is so close. It is coming down to just a few states, maybe 6 states, these swing states. They are absolutely dead heats. One political analyst calling it a knife fight in a telephone booth. That's how close this is going to be. This debate is coming up on September 10th, and it is going to be all eyes on Kamala Harris and, to a lesser degree, Donald Trump. People are going to want to see if Kamala Harris is up for this. This is not going to be a debate like Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. Kamala Harris is capable of speaking. She's been in politics a long time. The question is, can she respond to questions about her record and Joe Biden's record? Because when you put Donald Trump next to Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, Donald Trump comes out on top. His record speaks for itself. And when you ask her pointed questions and she suddenly flip-flops into a moderate position, can she explain that? And will that all come up in the debate? Because it's going to be crucial. And are they going to be using this debate to just talk to the swing states that matter? It's going to be fascinating how this one plays out. Joining us now is David Dulio, Director of the Center for Civic Engagement and Political Science Professor at Oakland University. Good morning. How are you?
I'm well, Kevin. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing great. I'm fascinated by these numbers, the polls, and how close things are. And even in the swing states, you'll have 4 polls in the swing states, and 2 of them will say Trump's winning, and 2 of them will say Kamala Harris is winning. It's very, very close. And we saw a little bit of Kamala Harris in her Friday interview, but not much. And I think all eyes are going to be on this debate. How important do you think this debate is with the amount of time that's left till early voting and the actual election day?
Yeah, Kevin, I think that the debate is incredibly important. It seems like it's turning into a very high leverage situation and moment in the campaign where, if one candidate really does well and the other one not so much, that could end up tipping the scales, right? And I think that it's pretty clear that the Harris campaign has a strategy behind the lack of media appearances and the lack of pure lack of press availability, right? With no press conferences thus far in her time as a presidential candidate. And it's interesting that could, if she doesn't perform very well, so that could come back to bite them because they're sort of putting all their eggs in this debate basket.
I agree with you. I almost think it's a mistake if you're worried about her ability to respond to questions that are not where she doesn't have answers on a teleprompter or remarks already printed out. I would think you'd want to do some limited, smaller interviews so that you could work out some of the kinks before you were on this massive stage of a debate where, under the circumstances of having a new candidate this late in the game, that many, if not most, independents might make their decision based on what happens that night.
Oh, no question, right? I think that experience and practice matters in these kinds of environments, right? Where you need to be comfortable performing in, under the hot lights of a debate stage, right? And where millions and millions of eyeballs are going to be focused, and again, where it's this I'll use a different metaphor, right, where they've sort of pushed all their chips to the middle of the table for this debate, and sort of we'll see how what cards get played.
It's interesting. So when you start to look at this, what do you think the candidates have to do? Because for me, Donald Trump, when he's on point about his record versus the Biden-Harris record, he's solid. When he starts to sort of name call, he all those unlikable feelings about Donald Trump sort of flood flood back in and come over you. With Kamala Harris, because she's such an unknown, I feel like she's spending so much time trying to be likable and avoid talking about the issues. I feel like these are going to be like two complete opposite performances.
Well, I think Trump needs to reassure America that, he's not going to do some of the worst things that the Democrats are claiming he is going to do. And I think a lot of that starts with discipline and not, as you say, right, sort of going off script or, getting down into name calling and into mud and mudslinging and that sort of thing, right? I think that, he needs to reassure America, and frankly, so does Kamala Harris, right? She needs to reassure America that she's up for the job, that, she can handle the bright lights, that she can handle the stage, and that I think she needs to convince people that some of these policy shifts, and I mean, shift is probably a generous term, right? Some of the policy shifts that we've seen in recent days and weeks are actually where she stands, because the Trump campaign is going to continue to hit her with advertisement after advertisement that demonstrates, what they would call a flip-flop.
So in a debate scenario, will she be able to just say, well, you asked me about the border, this is what I'll do on the border? Or will she get pushed to say, well, why did you say this differently in the past? Does that depend on the moderators? Because I don't think they're going to allow Donald Trump to question her.
Well, I think that it does in large part depend on the moderators, but I also think that Trump is going to get he's going to have his chances, right? I mean, let's forget about the debate over is the mic going to be open when it's not their time to speak and all that jazz. But, Trump he'll be able to use his time, to return to previous questions or previous points or previous statements that the vice president makes. And I think he's going to push her hard on those changes in attitudes.
What do you how do you think this is going to play? I kind of feel like this is going to come out a bit of a draw. I don't think either of them are going to completely blow it, and I don't think either of them are going to blow us away with how impressive they are.
Yeah, I think that's probably a likely scenario, right? I mean, I think we're a bit we're impacted by recency bias, right? Where the last presidential debate we had was an incredibly important and earth-shattering moment in the campaign, right? When Joe Biden and his debate performance really ended up being the straw that broke the camel's back and ushered him out of the race, right? It's hard to see this one having that kind of moment or moments. And at that point, we're left with, sort of where you started with the polls, and it's going to be close. I mean, and that's just sort of how it's going to be for the next, 65 days or however many we have left.
So will they be coached to address the issues as strong as possible in the 6 states or so that are going to determine this election, the swing states?
Well, I think that, again, depends on the moderators, right? I think we're for sure going to hear about issues like inflation and high prices, and I would imagine the vice president's going to get a chance to talk about her plans to go after price gouging or whatever she calls price gouging, and Trump is going to make his economic record argument. I think we're going to hear about immigration. I think we're going to hear about abortion, and then and those are important in all the states, right? But whether we get to the real drill down on, say, electric vehicles and electrification, something that's incredibly important and salient here in Michigan, I think that remains to be seen.
Well, I think the ratings are going to be phenomenal, and I think it's going to be fascinating. And it would be amazing to be an independent voter at this point, still undecided and still planning to vote. I can't believe it. Dave Giulio, director of the Center for Civic Engagement and Political Science, professor at Oakland University. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Kevin.